So I had a cool day once, like 6 months ago. Before I tell the story, I have to give some background. So I work at the fire department, and one of the cool things about my job is every once in a while we have kids that come to the station, and they want to get a tour of the truck and the station. And one thing I observed was, and it was really frustrating and confusing for me, was we'd have these kids that would come in, and they'd be kind of emotionless, and we would show them around and ask a question, and they would just stare at us. And I would expect them to be more excited because they want to come to the fire station to see the fire truck. They're in front of the fire truck, and they're just standing and non-responsive. And I was so confused, and I was taking it personally, like, man, they don't like me or something. And anyways, I was talking to one of my friends from college. She has 3 boys. And I was telling her about this problem. She's like, oh, no, that's no problem. My boys do that all the time. I'm like, why? What's going on? And she explained that they're so overwhelmed. All their synapses are firing, and they just can't process the information. They can't. You ask them a question, and they can't process the question. But they're loving it. She said, just keep doing what you're doing, keep showing them around, and they're listening, but just it's okay. So the story was one day we were having a group come in the morning. They were called brownies. You know what brownies are? Yeah, they're like 3rd graders. And they're supposed to come at 12 o'clock. And so we have time for lunch. So it's like 11:30. We're trying to eat our lunch. And then someone rings the doorbell. I'm like, man, we have a half hour left. And I go answer the door, and it's a woman. She's like, I have my niece in the car. I know we're early, but I just want you to know I wanted to come early to explain that I'm down from Chicago. Her mom is really, really sick. She has cancer. And so I had to come down to help take care of the family. And so I have her in the car, and I was wondering if you can spend a little extra time with her because she's kind of sad. I'm like, okay, no problem. So she goes and gets the daughter, and the daughter comes. Her name is Tina. I'm like, hey, Tina, and she just stares at me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you a tour of the station. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can ask any question. And she just stares. So I was like, let's go. So from having been there and dealt with kids like this and knowing what's going on in their minds, I've developed a strategy for how to proceed. So I just take the lead. I take her into the station. We go into the bay where the truck is. I'm like, okay, we have a fire truck and an ambulance. Which one do you want to see? And she just stares at me. I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to see the fire truck. So come on. So we go to the fire truck, and I walk her around. I show her the hose because in the front bumper we have a hose. I get down to her level. I'm like, you want to hold the hose? And I pull it off the truck, and she just stares at me. I'm like, okay, so when we're using this hose, we use this to open the water. Water comes out, we put it on the fire goes out. And she's just really a hard nut to crack. This is one of the harder cases I've had. So we go into the truck, and I put her in the driver's seat. I go in the officer's seat. We put on the earmuffs. I say, hey, turn on the power so we can talk to each other. So she's confused, and the button right over there. And so she reaches over and turns on the button, and now we can hear each other. We're talking into the microphone, and I explain why we're doing this because it gets really loud in the fire truck, and we need to protect our hearing and be able to hear each other. And I feel like I'm making progress with her finally because she pushed the button first of all, and she's looking at me, and she's kind of getting it. And I'm like, and the reason it's so loud is because the engine is right next to us. So she's sitting over here, I'm sitting over here, and in between us is the engine. And I said, here, let me open the door. So I opened a little cabinet where we check the oil for the engine, and hot air came out because we already just got back from a call, and the engine was really hot. I said, come over here, climb over on top of this and feel how hot it is. So I'm testing her, and she's going along with it. So she comes out, and she puts her hands over the hot heat, and she's like, yeah, that's hot. Cool, all right, let's go check out the pump. So we walk around to the pump. I said, I have her pull down some levers, and I'm like, listen, I'm going to ask you a question later. I want you to remember what the answer is. So how many gallons of water on this truck? And she's like, I don't know, 15? No. There's 750 gallons. Remember that because I'm going to ask you this later. Okay. So little by little, she's coming out of her shell, and we said, let's go check out the ambulance. So go to the ambulance. We go in the back where the stretcher is, and I explained to her what we do and all the drugs we have. And we have a monitor there, which is a computer EKG thing that you could do a blood pressure on. You could check oxygen saturation. You could put the wires on you and you could check your heart out. So I'm like, can I check out your blood pressure, see how it's doing? She's like, yeah, okay. So she put on the blood pressure, and I could see her blood pressure is normal. I'm like, wow, it's really good. Do you work out? And I like to dance. I'm like, that explains it. It's a really good blood pressure. So I'm going to put this wires on your chest and legs to check out your heart. Okay, cool. So put it on. Of course, it's a normal rhythm. It's an awesome rhythm for a young person. And I push print, and the printout comes out. I'm like, oh, wow, yeah. Are you creative? I could tell by this that you're creative. And she's like, oh, by then, I forgot to mention, by then the other students started coming, the other brownies. So they're all standing outside of the truck looking in, and they're kind of like confused that this Tina is sort of all wired up. And so I'm explaining about the reading, and I'm like, man, I could tell you're creative because it says right here. And one of the girls goes, no, it doesn't. And I'm like, man, she's ruining my mojo. And I didn't want her to, I'm trying to build Tina's self-esteem. I'm trying to build her up. And so someone's ruining it. I'm like, listen, who you are is in your heart. What you are is in your heart. You know, you need to be true to yourself. And this computer measures electrical activity in your heart. So you do the math. And I just left it at that. And so Tina finished her thing, and the next girl's like, I want to do it. And so I started this thing. I've never done it before. This is the first time I ever did it, where I was just making up, oh, you like to read, don't you? I do. It's so funny. And I would give it to my partner. He'd be like, oh, yeah, I see that. And so by the end of the day, we did our tour. We finished everything. Well, actually, we were at the fire truck, and we got back into the fire truck with all the kids. And they had their earmuffs on, and they're going crazy. I'm like, okay, I got some questions for you. I got some trivia. Who here knows how many gallons of water on the truck? And some people throw out some crazy numbers. And Tina goes, 750 gallons. I'm like, that's right. Oh my God, how did you know that? And she just played smart, and she didn't say anything. So all the girls were like looking at her like, how the hell does she know this? And so by the end, they're leaving and saying goodbye, but Tina was running around playing with the girls, and her demeanor was completely the opposite of when she first came. And it was a really cool day. It was awesome.